Have you ever been there? It's 3 in the morning, you're staring at the ceiling, and your mind is just racing. You can't turn it off. Or maybe you had a terrible night's sleep, and the next day you just felt jumpy and worried about everything. If any of that sounds familiar, you already know about the powerful and honestly super frustrating link between sleep and anxiety. So in this explainer, we're going to unravel that connection and, more importantly, figure out how to break the cycle.
It really is the classic chicken or the egg question, isn't it? What's the real culprit here? Did your anxiety keep you awake all night? Or did the fact that you couldn't sleep cause you to feel so anxious? It's a question that can make you feel like you're just stuck on a hamster wheel with no idea how to get off.
So what do we know? Well, it turns out the answer isn't one or the other. The answer is both. The relationship between anxiety and not sleeping well is a really powerful two-way street. Each one can kick off the other, and they can make each other worse, creating this nasty, vicious cycle that feels almost impossible to escape. Okay, so to really get a handle on how to break this thing, we've got to be super clear on what we're actually up against. Let's take a closer look at the two main players in this whole drama: insomnia and anxiety. And when you put them side by side like this, something just jumps right out at you. Look at the symptoms for generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. Right there on the list is restless, unsatisfying sleep. That sounds an awful lot like insomnia, right? This just shows you how tangled up they are from the very start. Let's drill down a bit on insomnia. We're not just talking about one rough night here. It's a pattern. You've got acute insomnia, which might just last a few days or weeks, maybe because of a big deadline at work. But then there's chronic insomnia. That's when it lasts for a month or even longer, and that's the kind that's much more likely to be tied up with mental health stuff, like anxiety. And then, on the other side of the coin, you've got anxiety. It's that feeling of worry or dread that just feels way out of proportion to what's actually happening. It can show up in a lot of different ways, like the GAD we just mentioned, or social anxiety, or separation anxiety. And all of them can seriously mess with our ability to just feel calm and, fall asleep. So we know what we're dealing with. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How exactly do these two things feed off each other to create that downward spiral? All right, first up, how does a worried mind completely sabotage our sleep? Well, when you're anxious, your body goes into this state of hyperarousal. Your mind is just buzzing, replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow. That whole state of mental and physical tension is the exact opposite of what your body needs to relax and drift off. And this isn't some rare thing. The link here is incredibly strong. Research shows that about 90%, 90, of young people who deal with anxiety also say they have major problems with sleep. That number is just staggering. It tells you this is not a coincidence. It's practically a given. Okay, so let's flip it around and look at the other direction of this two-way street. Not getting enough sleep doesn't just make you tired. It literally primes your brain for anxiety. See, when you're sleep deprived, the parts of your brain that are in charge of managing emotions don't work as well. This makes you way more reactive to stress and much more likely to see things as a threat. And science totally backs this up. A big study of older adults in China found a really clear connection. Even after they accounted for other factors, the researchers saw that the worse someone's sleep quality was, and the less sleep they got, the higher their risk was for developing anxiety. So the takeaway is crystal clear. Bad sleep can be a direct path to an anxious mind. Okay, so that's the problem. It's this frustrating, self-feeding loop. But, and this is the important part, it is not a life sentence. There are real, concrete strategies that you can use to step in and stop this cycle. So let's open up the toolkit. A lot of this starts with something called sleep hygiene. And the first step is all about routine. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, yep, even on weekends, helps train your body's internal clock. Next, you gotta watch out for stimulants. Things like caffeine or nicotine too close to bedtime can really mess you up. Third, you wanna create some kind of calming ritual that tells your brain, hey, it's time to wind down. Maybe it's reading a book, just not scrolling on your phone. And finally, and this one is crucial, don't just lie there getting more and more stressed about not sleeping. If it's not happening, get up for a bit. Do something relaxing until you actually feel sleepy again. So good sleep hygiene is a fantastic foundation, but what if that's not quite enough? Well, researchers are also looking at other ways to find relief, and that includes some alternative therapies. Let's check out one that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. So, a study looked at adults who were dealing with both anxiety and poor sleep,
and they had them try CBD oil. The results? Pretty promising. Over 3 months, about 2/3 of the people, that's 67%, said their sleep got better. Now, it's worth noting this was a small study, so we definitely need more research, but it's a really interesting development.
Now, for some people, the problem is more severe, and lifestyle changes just aren't going to cut it, and that is totally okay. That's when it's time to talk to a doctor about some more serious medical-grade interventions.
One of the absolute best treatments out there is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Basically, it's a type of therapy that helps you catch and change those negative thoughts. The ones like, I'm never going to fall asleep, that are fueling the whole anxiety insomnia machine. When it comes to medication, doctors might look at SSRIs, which can actually help with both issues. You'll see older meds like benzodiazepines prescribed a lot less these days, mainly because there's a risk of dependency.
So, with all these different options, how do you know when to stop trying to fix it on your own? When is it time to raise your hand and say, hey, I need some help here?
Well, here are some really clear signs to watch for. First, if your anxiety is seriously getting in the way of your daily life, your job, your relationships, your ability to just feel happy. Second, if the lack of sleep is making it almost impossible for you to function during the day. And a third one to look out for, if you're having really intense or disturbing dreams on a regular basis, that's another good reason to check in with a pro. So here's the most important thing I want you to take away from all of this. If you are stuck in this loop of anxiety and sleeplessness, please know you are so not alone. Some estimates say up to 30% of people struggle with poor sleep. This is a common, well-understood issue, and most importantly, with the right strategy and the right support, it is absolutely treatable. So that brings us to the end, and I just want to leave you with one final thought. Thinking about everything we've talked about in our toolkit, what's just one small, totally manageable step you could take, maybe even starting tonight, to begin breaking that cycle and finally get some better rest?